All right, good morning. All right, for the next few weeks, we're going to take a look at Proverbs. We talked a little bit about this last week, and we looked at chapter 1. There's a couple of things that we're going to look at this morning. Actually, we're going to try to look at a big section of this from chapter 2 through chapter 9 is the goal this morning, right? Now, that's ambitious, but we're going to give it a shot, and we'll see how far we get. Just a quick little review is on this wisdom literature. What's this after? And this is directions on how to live well, right? How to respond to the things around us well, how to live what's defined as a good life. We talked about the Proverbs that are general principles that hold true. They are not absolute promises, right? Because there are things in here that we go, and we looked at a couple last week that are almost side by side but seem to say the different thing, right? So it's very, very context dependent on the circumstances and we find ourselves in. This is kind of what this is supposed to look like. But again, these are general principles. I've got a little book called How to Read the Proverbs. It's been very, very helpful. And in it, he makes an argument that in order to get the bulk of the Proverbs, we really need to figure out the first nine chapters. The first 9 chapters kind of set up the rest of the book. From 10 to 31, his argument is, and we can agree or disagree with that, is that there are a lot of various individual Proverbs that come through there, but the first section, Proverbs 1 through 9, really set the stage for all of this. And so that's where we're gonna spend our time this morning, is in those chapters. We think of wisdom literature, it's the way I think of it, wisdom literature, wisdom teaching. In the Old Testament, Job is considered wisdom literature. So is Ecclesiastes, right? And Proverbs. And actually, Job and Ecclesiastes are almost a rebuttal in some ways to Proverbs. Proverbs are, if you do this, then this will happen, right? If you do this, then things go well. And then you get to Job, and Job goes, I did this, and things went awful, right? And the same with Ecclesiastes of going, I'm not really sure about all this, and so he wrestles with this quite a bit, and it's a wonderful book. But wisdom literature doesn't end there. There's other places, and there are some, and I kind of see the point, by the way, that the Sermon on the Mount is wisdom teaching. And I can agree with that in some ways. It's not all that it is, but it is a good chunk of it. So the reason I think that, by the way, is so we all know what the end of the Sermon on the Mount is, right? We could all stand up and sing it if you want to, right? But we know what it is. It's the VBS song. Wise man built his house, right? That's it. It is going, whoever hears these words of mine and puts them into practice is like a wise man, right? So we have the wise and the fool that are delineated for us, Jesus does at the end of that. But it's not just that. There's another little section in the Sermon on the Mount, again, toward the end. Another one that I think we're fairly familiar with, and it really is going to set up what we're going to talk about this morning from Proverbs, and that is Matthew chapter 7, 2 little short verses, 13 and 14. Enter by the narrow gate. The gate is wide, the way is easy that leads to destruction, and those who enter by it are many. The gate is narrow, and the way is hard that leads to life, and those who find it are few. Now, there's a lot of stuff to unpack in there that we're not gonna jump off into, but it does have Jesus again at the end of the Sermon of the Mount. It's the wise and the fool, and here before that it is the good path and the wrong path, the good path and the bad path, and that is how really how this gets set up in at the beginning of Proverbs. Right? So go with me to Proverbs chapter 2. We're going to look at this. And we're going to look at some other sections between there and 9, or between there and 8 before we get done. Proverbs 2. My son, if you receive my words and treasure up my commandments with you, making your ear attentive to wisdom and inclining your heart to understanding. Yes, if you call out for insight and raise your voice for understanding, if you seek it like silver and search for it as for hidden treasures, then you will understand the fear of the Lord and find the knowledge of God. For the Lord gives wisdom. From his mouth come knowledge and understanding. He stores up sound wisdom for the upright. He's a shield to those who walk in integrity, guarding the paths of justice, watching over the way of his saints. Then you will understand righteousness and justice and equity, every good path. For wisdom will come into your heart, and knowledge will be pleasant to your soul. Discretion will watch over you. Understanding will guard you, delivering you from the way of evil, from men of perverted speech who forsake paths of uprightness, to walk in the ways of darkness, who rejoice in doing evil and delight in the perverseness of evil, men whose paths are crooked and who are devious in their ways. So you will be delivered from the forbidden woman, from the adulteress with her smooth words, who forsakes the companion of her youth and forgets the covenant of her God. For her house sinks down to death, and her paths to the departed. None who go to her come back, nor do they regain the paths of life. So you will walk in the way of good. Keep to the paths of righteousness. For the upright will inhabit the land, and those with integrity will remain in it, but the wicked will be cut off from the land, and the treacherous will be rooted out of it. Okay, just in those 22 little short verses, we see the difference in the two. Right? We have a good path, and then we have a crooked path. Or we have a good path and we have an evil path, however you want to determine those, but there they are. The good path. The good path includes things like justice, righteousness, and equity. All things that sometimes leave a bad taste in our mouth if we're not careful, especially in the political climate we're in. But justice and righteousness and equity. Maybe at its root is looking at people as people who are created in the image of God. Right? The equity and the fairness and the justice, those kinds of things that should be important to us. Wouldn't you say? Yes? No? Maybe? Okay. All right. Because that seems to be the path of righteousness. The path, the good path. Oh, so there's just too many to mention. But we think about this, the life as life in general. It's hard to say the life of the people of God, but life in general is characterized as a path or a road or a way, right? It's a travel. It's a journey. And it's important, at least it's important as the opening lines of this proverb go, it's very important that we pass those things along. Right? So seems to be the context, which we'll talk more about in a minute, but the context right now seems to be from a father to a son. Right? From one generation to another. The bad path is perverted speech. I'm guessing, okay? Because it doesn't say. There's not really any definition of that here in the text. I would say it's dishonesty. Wouldn't you? Does that make sense? Perverted speech seems to be holding true here. Darkness. evil and its perverseness. I think our writer is again going back to who determines what's a good life and what's not. And I know we talked about this last week, and we're going to continue to make our way talking about this, is that the one who designed life ought to be the one that says whether it's good or bad. Yes? No? Okay. And so to pervert, right? To pervert the goodness is evil. Now, I would ask, but I'm not going to. I would ask. It might be fun, but no. When I say perverseness, what comes to mind, right? There's a lot of things that comes to mind. But I think at its root, where our writer is going here is anything that is opposed to the design of God. I know we talked about this whenever we looked at the capital vices. That a lot of the capital vices that we talk about are actually somewhere in there is something good that's become disordered. Yes? You remember those? Okay. This kind of thing. It is not that it is maybe bad in itself, but it's become the wrong good. It's become disordered. And I think this is what he's looking at. All right. I want to keep moving here for just a second. I know there's a lot in this, and we're covering a lot quickly. The other one is that, and I know we did talk about this one last week, is that wisdom is available. Right? God's not hiding it from us, but we do have to look for it. That make some kind of sense? It's not like God has it hidden and he's just waiting around to see if there's any way that we're ever going to stumble onto it. Right? That wisdom is found in God, but we do have to, right? We do have to look for it. We're probably not going to stumble into it by accident. I go back to Jesus and the Sermon on the Mount of the narrow and the broad path. Narrow and the broad gate. You're not going to hit the narrow gate by accident. But he says it is valuable and it's worth spending our time looking at. It's worth spending our time looking for. And if we look for it, we'll find it. All right. He moves down here, and we're going to talk about this some more in the context of this entire section. He moves in verse 16 of chapter 2. He goes, "You will be delivered from the forbidden woman, from the adulteress with her smooth words." Now, for these first 9 chapters, adultery is mentioned over and over and over. Here's what I think. I think in some of it that we're going to run across, he's talking about adultery the way that you and I would think of adultery. Right? And some of it he's not talking about it the way that you and I would think of adultery. One of the common metaphors for the people of Israel and their relationship with God is that of marriage in the Old Testament. God and his people. And it's done that way. And so often in the Old Testament, adultery, spoken of by the prophets, is idolatry. Is the people of Israel pledging themselves to another, right? Giving themselves to another when they have been wed to God. That make sense? And so I think even here at this first part, it's given us a hint as to where he's going. And where he's going is not necessarily adultery the way that we would think of it, physical adultery. But where he's moving toward is where he's going to get to in chapters 8 and 9 of the 2 different women to choose. And there is the woman of wisdom, and then there's the woman of folly. And so the woman of wisdom is the one you want to seek. And the woman of folly is one who forsakes the companion of her youth, forgets the covenant of her God. Okay, I think this is part of it. Her house sinks down to death. Her paths go to the departed. None who go to her come back, nor do they regain the paths of life. So again, we're back to the path. The good path includes life. The good path also we're going to find is where God is. That God's on the good path. And that's where he's encouraging his hearers to be. All right? All right, let's go to chapter 3 real quick. My son, do not forget my teaching, but let your heart keep my commandments. For the length of days and years of life and peace they will add to you. Let not steadfast love and faithfulness forsake you. Bind them around your neck. Write them on the tablet of your heart. So you will find favor and good success in the sight of God and man. Trust in the Lord with all your heart and do not lean on your own understanding. In all your ways acknowledge him and he will make your path straight. Be not wise in your own eyes. Fear the Lord and turn away from evil. It will be healing to your flesh and a refreshment to your bones. Honor the Lord with your wealth, with the first fruits of all your produce. Then your barns will be filled with plenty. Your vats will be bursting with wine. My son, do not despise the Lord's discipline or be weary of his reproof, for the Lord reproves him whom he loves, as a father delights, as the father, the son in whom he delights. All right, we want to stop there for just a second. Chapter 2 sets up that wisdom can be found. Right? It's something that you ought to seek after. It's worth it. But here are the requirements. At least some of them. And the first one is, I don't think there's a second one. I think it's just the first one. Is humility. And that's probably enough. I don't know that there needs to be another one. It's hard enough. The step toward wisdom is to admit that we don't have it. That's fun, right? Because we all want to do that. We all like to admit that we don't know anything. Met a lot of people in my life, and most of them know something. And some of them know everything. You know who they are, right? And some people who, there's nothing that they're not an authority on. And we love them because we have to. But they're annoying, aren't they? Because we understand, again, we understand that they can't possibly know everything about every subject. But they seem to. I've worked with some people like that. I don't know if anybody else has or not. If you haven't, I don't know, maybe you're the one. I don't know. But they are annoying. I'd hate to think that God finds people annoying, wouldn't you? But I don't know another adjective. I can imagine that the one who does hold all knowledge, how frustrating that must be when he encounters us who say, oh no, we know better. Right? And so this first thing, and it's a favorite verse of a lot of people, and it ought to be one that we hang on to. That wisdom is found in trusting God with what you have, and you do not know everything. As a matter of fact, you know very little. And again, that's not something we like to hear. You don't send cards to people like that, do you? Cards of encouragement. We love you, but you really don't know much, right? We don't do that. But it's something that we have to hear, because without it, we're not going to find it. It doesn't take us long in Scripture to find out what happened when we think we know everything. Adam and Eve in the garden. I know that God said I shouldn't do this, but, I mean, come on, look at it. It's good to eat. It looks good. And I will be as wise as he is. And they decide to do it, and, whoa, just watch what happens. It's not good. And a lot of things haven't changed. Huh? That's the first thing. The first thing is that he gets to call balls and strikes here. Right? He gets to decide what's in and out. With that, right, humility just keeps coming along down the line. And you honor God with the things that you have. As Israel gets ready to enter into Canaan, I can't recall exactly where this is. It's in Deuteronomy somewhere. God says, here's what you need to do. Right? You need to make sure that you remember me. You're going to enter this land, and it's a good land. And he's called it a good land ever since, a good and broad land. He's called that since the first part of Exodus. A land that flows with milk and honey. And you're going to live in houses that you didn't build, and you're going to eat from vineyards you didn't plant, and you're going to drink from wells you didn't dig, and you're going to go, look at what I've done. And you're going to forget me. Humility. Again. Honor the Lord with your wealth, with the first fruits of all your produce. Your barns will be filled with plenty, your vats will be bursting with wine. I'm going, don't forget where it came from. Right? And the last part of that, as far as humility goes, is do not despise his discipline. And again, not a fun thing to think about. If we're disciplined by someone else, it really means that we're not in charge, doesn't it? All right. Blessed is the one who finds wisdom. Verse 13. Blessed is the one who finds wisdom and the one who gets understanding. For the gain from her is better than the gain from silver, and her profit better than gold. She's more precious than jewels, and nothing you desire can compare with her. Long life is in her right hand. In her left hand are riches and honor. Her ways are ways of pleasantness, and all her paths are peace. She's a tree of life to those who lay hold of her. Those who hold her fast are called blessed. The Lord by wisdom founded the earth. By understanding he established the heavens. By his knowledge the deeps broke open. The clouds dropped the dew. My son, do not lose sight of these. Keep sound wisdom and discretion. There will be life for your soul and adornment for your neck. Then you will walk on your way securely, and your foot will not stumble. You lie down, you will not be afraid. When you lie down, your sleep will be sweet. Do not be afraid of sudden terror or the ruin of the wicked when it comes, for the Lord will be your confidence and will keep your foot from being caught. Do not withhold good from those to whom it's due when it's in your power to do it. Do not say to your neighbor, go and come again tomorrow, I will give it when you have it with you. Do not plan evil against your neighbor who dwells trustingly beside you. Do not contend with a man for no reason when he's done you no harm. Do not envy a man of violence, and do not choose any of his ways. For the devious person is an abomination to the Lord, but the upright are his confidence. The Lord's curse is on the house of the wicked, but he blesses the dwelling of the righteous. Toward the scorners he is scornful, but to the humble he gives favor. The wise will inherit honor, but the fools get disgrace. At the first part of this little section, from 13 to 20. From 13 to 20 sets up what he's going to do here in just a little bit, and we're actually going to flip over there. I'm going to fast forward a little bit in a minute and look at this. Wisdom, he's already got set up. Wisdom is set up as a woman. Right? Did you hear it? Hearing the language? She is a tree of life to those who lay hold of her. Those who hold her fast are called blessed. Long life in her right hand. She is more precious than jewels. All of this sets up where he's going to go. And so let's flip over there now, or we're going to run out of time. Let's flip over to chapter 8. We'll come back and pick up these others as we hit various themes, but 8 and 9 are where we're going to spend some time. Does not wisdom call? Does not understanding raise her voice? On the heights beside the way, at the crossroads, she takes her stand. Beside the gates in front of the town, at the entrance of the portal, she cries aloud, "To you, O men, I call." My cry is to the children of man. O simple ones, learn prudence. O fools, learn sense. Hear, for I will speak noble things, and from my lips will come what is right. My mouth will utter truth. Wickedness is an abomination to my lips. All the words of my mouth are righteous. There is nothing twisted or crooked in them. They are all straight to him who understands, and right to those who find knowledge. Take my instruction instead of silver, and knowledge rather than choice gold, for wisdom is better than jewels, and all that you may desire cannot compare with her. I, wisdom, dwell with prudence. I find knowledge and discretion. The fear of the Lord is hatred of evil, pride and arrogance, the way of evil, and perverted speech I hate. I have counsel in sound wisdom. I have insight. I have strength. By me, kings reign, and rulers decree what is just. By me, princes rule, and all nobles who govern justly. I love those who love me, and those who seek me diligently find me. Riches and honor are with me, enduring wealth and righteousness. My fruit is better than gold, even fine gold, and my yield than choice silver. I walk in the way of righteousness, in the paths of justice, granting an inheritance to those who love me, filling their treasures. The Lord possessed me at the beginning of his work, the first of his acts of old. Ages ago I was set up at the first, before the beginning of the earth. When there were no depths, I was brought forth, where there were no springs abounding with water. Before the mountains had been shaped, before the hills I was brought forth, before he had made the earth with its fields, or the first of the dust of the world. When he established the heavens, I was there. When he drew a circle on the face of the deep, when he made firm the skies above, when he established the fountains of the deep, when he assigned to the sea its limits so that water might not transgress his command, when he marked out the foundations of the earth, then I was beside him like a master workman, and I was daily his delight, rejoicing before him always, rejoicing in his inhabited world, and delighting in the children of man. And now, O sons, listen to me. Blessed are those who keep my ways. Hear instruction and be wise, and do not neglect it. Blessed is the one who listens to me, watching daily at my gates, waiting beside my doors. For whoever finds me finds life and obtains favor from the Lord. But he who fails to find me injures himself. All who hate me love death. Wisdom has built her house. She has hewn her 7 pillars. She has slaughtered her beast. She has mixed her wine, and she has also set her table. She has sent out her young women to call from the highest places in the town. Whoever is simple, let him turn in here. Whoever lacks sense, she says, come eat of my bread and drink of the wine I have mixed. Leave your simple ways and live, and walk in the way of insight. Whoever corrects a scoffer gets himself abuse. Whoever reproves a wicked man incurs injury. Do not reprove a scoffer, or he will hate you. Reprove a wise man, and he will love you. Give instruction to a wise man, and he will be still wiser. Teach a righteous man, and he will increase in learning. The fear of the Lord is the beginning of wisdom, and the knowledge of the Holy One is insight. For by me your days will be multiplied, and years will be added to your life. If you're wise for yourself. If you scoff, you alone will bear it. The woman of folly is loud. She is seductive and knows nothing. She sits at the door of her house. She takes a seat on the highest places in town, calling those who pass by, who are going straight on their way. Whoever is simple, let him turn in here. And whoever lacks sense, she says, stolen water is sweet, and bread eaten in secret is pleasant. But he does not know that the dead are there, that her guests are the depths of Sheol. Okay, we're going to stop there. I know it's a lot of reading, but we see it set up, don't we? Wisdom and folly. Now, from what I understand, we think about, and we need to think about, we don't ever want to skip over the original readers, right? We don't ever want to skip over the original readers. Now, it seems to me that the original readers are the people of Israel. That makes sense? These are their scriptures, by the way. So this ought to be for them. And so what is being set up here in its original, I think, is this idea of make the choice of who you're going to serve, right? There's a long reading to get what Joshua does in Joshua chapter 24, just like that, right? Choose today who you will serve. Whether it's the gods that your fathers served in the land beyond the river, or the ones that are in Egypt, or in the land of the Amorites, in whose land you now dwell. But if it's God, choose him. And that's what is set up here. We have, right, Lady Wisdom represents God. And you hear all of the language. I hope we hear all the language as you read through it. It goes all the way back to Genesis 1 about the creation. This is the God who created the heavens and the earth and everything in them. This is who's represented by Lady Wisdom. Lady Folly are the gods in whose of the lands in whom they now dwell. A couple of things that we notice, I hope we notice, that are very, very similar, is their places. She sits on the highest places in the town. The highest place in town is the temple. Right? This is the ancient Near Eastern thought, by the way, is the closer you get, right? The closer you get to the heavens, the easier it is to communicate. That's why temples are built on the high places. That's why altars are built on the high places. That's why way back in Genesis chapter 11, when the people come to the plains of Shinar, they build this tower. It's not a tower the way we think of it, it's a mountain. They're building a replica of a mountain because this is where worship happens. And so each of them are set up here. And which would be absolutely true, is that God would be in his temple. And the gods of the Canaanites would also be in their temples. They both call to the same group of people. Do you notice that? I got in trouble last week for looking at somebody when I said this. So I'm just going to look straight down that way. To the simple-minded and to the one who lacks sense. Okay. Both called the same people. We don't like to think of it that way, but us. And they both have something that they claim to offer. The woman of folly, not so much. Because what the writer is telling you, I'm going, if you go that way, it's a path that leads to death. No one comes back from there. Right? There's nothing there. Stolen water is sweet, bread eaten in secret is pleasant. You know, you're going to get your fill. But the end's not good. On the other hand, they've both invited you to come and eat. Lady Wisdom has slaughtered her beast, mixed her wine, and set the table. And you're welcome to come and join. So take your pick. I didn't write this verse down. But I want us to think about where it is that we find wisdom. Now, we've talked about the context, the original context seems to be for Israel of going, here are your options. Right? Here's the God who created everything. Here's the God who invites you to his table. Here's the God who has provided for you and will continue to provide for you, that it will be long, your days will be added, security, all of those things that go in there. Or there's these gods. If you're walking into the city, you go, well, there's one over there and there's one over here. And our author says, you can go this way. You can go that way. She's also ready for you to eat there. Death is where it ends. That's where it's going to lead. And she's calling out to the simple the simple-minded and those who lack sense. And the difference in making that decision is what this entire book deals with, is search for wisdom. Search for where it's actually found. All right. There's another little similarity here that I want to leave us with, is we look back at chapter 8, and I want us to look at all of these little things. The Lord, verse 22. The Lord possessed me at the beginning of his work, the first of his acts of old. Ages ago I was set up, at the first, before the beginning of the earth. We go all the way through this creation. Right? When there were no depths, when there were no springs, before the mountains were formed, before the hills, before he had made the earth with its field. All of that. Then at verse 30, then I was beside him like a master workman. I was daily his delight, rejoicing before him always, rejoicing in his inhabited world, and delighting in the children of man. There's another passage that comes to mind. There's one in Colossians, and that's the one I forgot to write down. But before we get to there, we hear John. In the beginning was the Word, and the Word was with God, and the Word was God. By him all things were created, so that without him nothing was made that has been made. I hear that opening section of John when you read chapter 8 of Proverbs. And it goes back to, where do we find wisdom? And I think that what we're going to learn as we make our way through this, that wisdom is embodied in Jesus. Right? The verse from Colossians that I can't remember where it is that in him are hidden all the treasures of knowledge and wisdom. Isn't that familiar? So that as we think about what it means to live a wise life, a good life, it's usually backward to what we would typically think, because Jesus is backward to what most people expected. But that's what wisdom looks like. Wisdom is embodied in Jesus. Right? The purpose of the Proverbs is to teach us how to respond to and react to all of the things that happen around us, and to do it well. And we can see that when we just walk with Jesus through the gospel, of how to respond to all of the things that go on around him and do it well. Hello? There's a lot in this, and there's a lot that sometimes gets confused. It's actually been kind of it's been a source of some things that we would go, I think you're taking that too far. As in early Christian heresies that we don't really need to get into. But the bottom line of this is that we see wisdom as pictured as with God in the beginning. And the way that all of this is established, and the way that life ought to go, and the difference between the narrow path, or the good path that leads to life, and the broad path that doesn't, is that we watch, and we watch for Jesus. That make sense? All right, we're gonna stop there. Hold your applause. We'll pick up and we'll start looking at the various themes from 10 through 31 that we find next week, and they kind of get grouped in different ways, but we'll talk about those. Let's pray as we close. Father, we love you and we thank you so much for who you are. We thank you so much that you didn't leave us on our own. We're thankful that wisdom can be found in you. Help us to be humble enough to seek it. Help us to be humble enough to act and to move in the right direction when it's found. We have various voices that call in different directions every single day. Help us to listen to the voice of Jesus. We're thankful that you sent him. We're thankful that we get to see in his life the way life ought to be done. Help us to have the desire to continue to look for that and the courage to follow through when we find it. We're so thankful for our time together this morning, and we love you so much. In Jesus' name, amen.